Hello, hello, hello. I know it's been a long time since a chapter call for the fanfic, and of course a big reason for this is that 3 fanfic chapters, Victarion 1, Tyrion 1, and Barristan 2, were reconstructed from fan reports rather than from you guys. But now we're back and looking for some great writing. And we will need it as this chapter we are tackling will be challenging. We have to wrap up the whole Battle of Fire because, oh my god, the thing just needs to end already. I mean, it's 7 chapters for one battle, so come on. And that's mostly George's fault. And to make things even more challenging, it's a Tyrion chapter, meaning it's poetic and funny. The prose of Tyrion is the most poetic in Ice and Fire, and the dialogue is always witty and clever. And dirty. And so in writing, remember this. Bring your A poetry game. Now there is a lot in this chapter to handle, so if you just want to tackle one part, feel free. Again, a very well-crafted paragraph is actually more useful than a moderately well-written whole chapter. Now, a lot needs to be covered, but try to make this chapter as short as possible. I know this is going to be really tough because there's a lot of things in here, but at most, limit the chapter to 7,500 words. I'm trying to wrap up as many loose threads as possible, but of course, if you have great ideas that need to be put in, please do it. I'm always open to suggestions and changes. These outlines are mainly guidance. But let's get into what needs to happen. So the structure of the Tyrion III chapter is essentially broken down into 4 parts. There's the walk to the Beastmaster camp, there's discussing the battle at the Beastmaster camp, there are the events of the prison tent, and then there is the final race to the gate. So to start things off, the Second Sons are slowly trotting through the Wisemaster camps. They can see the battle in the bay as well as Rhaegal flying around. Harridan is looming to their north, and they're going slowly because they don't want to draw attention to themselves. Tyrion, Penny, and Jorah are walking, posing as prisoners, their hands tied. Tyrion's rope with Bakoko, Penny's with Alans, Jorah's with Snatch. The ropes around their wrists are loose though, and in time Tyrion could free himself. Beneath their cloaks, the 3 were allowed armor to protect themselves against a stray arrow or bolt. The Yunkish camps are generally empty other than servants, guards, and camp followers. Most eyes seem to be on the Ironborn fighting the Yunkish and the Green Dragon flying over the bay. There are a few people preparing for battle here and there, but for the most part the camps are clear of soldiers. As they walk, the group first talks about their scheme. This is establishing an expectation for the chapter to later subvert. The Second Sons are posing as hostage collectors. They're going to ask for Hero, Jogo, and Dario from the Beastmaster, lying by saying they're going to be delivered for execution. But once they get the hostages, they will quickly ride to Barristan's army in the field, where they will yield. During the ride, it's important to have Bakoko complain about Tyrion's strong perfume smell. Beneath Tyrion's cloak is the breastplate that Tyrion took from the dead Wisemaster, and with it came a heavy perfume smell. We're essentially saying that the dead man from the last chapter was the perfumed hero. Bakoko will say that the perfume is going to give them away, but Brown Ben will say that he can't smell anything from where he's riding, and we need some sort of joke about how far men can smell. This is going to come back later. Also during this ride, we need to sprinkle in Victarion III horn blasts, and how horrible they sound. Place the blasts wherever they fit best. If you want to start the chapter with a blast and then sprinkle them in along the way, you can. Do whatever works. So the Second Sons pass the camp of Lord Wobblecheeks. This camp is large and sprawling and well kept. Lord Wobblecheeks has led most of his men to face the Ironborn. The slaves there, the guards and servants, all look well armed, well fed, and attentive. The banner of House Alok is proudly displayed. If one didn't know better, one would think that this was a Westerosi lord's camp. And in contrast, they will then pass the camp of the Charioteer. It is not in good shape, the opposite of Wobblecheeks. There's no banners, the tents are poorly pitched, the slave guards look starved and are transfixed on the dragon. In the middle of the camp sits a giant bronze chariot, ready with 4 horses for when the Wisemaster himself chooses to join the battle. The charioteer has clearly not yet found the courage to do so. And then they make it to the Beastmaster's camp, and it's very clear why he was chosen to keep the hostages. His camp is a menagerie, a zoo, and this is where we can have a description of lots of different animals in chains and in cages. But what strikes Tyrion the most is that the Beastmaster owns a direwolf. The thing is old and huge, much larger than the last direwolf he saw at Winterfell. It's tied up in a pen, chewing on a horse skull. Tyrion will then think of Bran and Summer and how Joffrey's "send a dog to kill a wolf" eventually led him here. And then he'll realize that he misremembered, and will think of Joffrey's true words, "send a dog to kill a dog." Joffrey wanted to kill a direwolf for keeping him up. He's confused for a moment, but then his thoughts are interrupted by the direwolf growling. It seems to have smelled something, and Tyrion realizes it's his perfume. Anyway, the slave guards call for their commander, who is atop a small wooden watchtower. He comes down to introduce himself as the brother of the Beastmaster, or cousin, or whoever, it doesn't really matter. Brown Ben tells the brother that he's been commanded to collect the captives and bring them to the Harridan by the order of Morgaz Zojerzin, the drunken conqueror. He says that these escaped slaves, the Unsullied, the Stormcrow's captain, and the Dothraki, will all be tossed in a single clutch. The brother will say that it's about time. He thinks the prisoners should have been executed days ago. The brother then complains that he doesn't understand why Morgaz is giving orders. It's not his turn. His turn was not 4 days past, and he shouldn't really be in charge again for a fortnight. Brown Ben says he doesn't know. He's just a sellsword who follows orders. That's his job. The brother will then admit that the Beastmaster didn't protest when Morgaz took control. His brother and the Wise Masters have their schemes, and he isn't privy to them. He then orders the slaves to fetch the Beastmaster. While they wait, Ben asks for news of the battlefield, nodding towards the tower. The brother will say that from what he can tell, the attacks by the sea are their main challenge. Whoever these fighters are, they are savage. But at least the Myronese army to their east, that is Barristan, has been dealt with. They were rolling up the defense line north, but were stopped by the Company of the Cat up near Harpy's Daughter, and were repelled. Currently, the enemy is in chaos. Half are retreating back to Marine's East Gate, and half are heading towards the Dragon Banners by the sea. The news surprises Brown Ben, and Tyrion will worry. Sir Barristan has failed. Casporio will point out that the Cat's footmen are well trained in the spear. They use the square, as we mentioned in the JonCon chapters. Ben then asks about the Windblown, and the brother says that after they killed Gorjak Zoerez, the company fled east. They've been harrying various armies, especially theirs, but they've never fully committed to an attack. Tyrion then considers that the Windblown might have the same idea as the Second Sons, and they want to free the hostages. The brother leaves them briefly to see why the direwolf is all riled up. While the brother is gone, Bakoko, in the common tongue so the slave guards don't understand, suggests that they pretend that they never switch sides and remain with the Yunkish. But then Snatch points out that they disobeyed orders, and the orders they were given are too late to follow. The Unsullied have dispersed, and there's no army to take in the rear. Alan then suggests that perhaps they follow their first orders, and they ride to the Ironborn at the sea. But Jorah chimes in and says that's a horrible option. He knows the Iron Men. They'll kill them or take them as thralls. They then look out to the sea and see several Ironborn ships aflame. The Green Dragon has landed on one and is clawing at its hull. Ben considers the battlefield and says that their plans remain mostly the same. After they get the hostages, they will ride to Marine's West Gate. Some of Sir Barristan's men will be retreating back into the city. They can yield to them and find protection behind the walls with everyone else. They look to the West Gate and they see men gathering there, but the gates have not yet opened to them. The Beastmaster then comes out to greet Brown Ben. He's an eccentric one, so describe him as you see fit. Perhaps his hair has been shaped like wolf ears, maybe animal armor, or put a little Valyrian, that is, a lemur, on his shoulder. Brown Ben again asks for the prisoners, saying that Morgaz has ordered that he bring them to the Harridan for execution. The Beastmaster will scoff. That's not the plan, you sellswords know nothing. The Unsullied are in retreat. Morgaz has ordered that the boulders be prepared for the Palios maneuver. I've chosen that name at random, change it if you'd like. Ben will be confused. What does Syvas have to do with anything? The Palios maneuver. Tyrion will think. It's a feint in Syvas where one threatens a deep strike with a trebuchet, only to strike shallow instead. Suddenly Tyrion remembers the Blackwater. He thinks of Joffrey's joy when the Antlermen flew across the Blackwater. A man was not as heavy as a boulder or cask of burning pitch. Then realization comes. If bodies were landing just inside the city, boulders would... Just then, a chunk thump. 6 boulders fly through the air in an array. The huge rocks skip off the ground and bowl over dozens of men, crushing them. The rest of the men at the gate scatter and run in all directions. The The Second Sons are clearly taken aback. The west gate is not open and under attack. They can't go there. Their plan is in pieces. At this point, the direwolf is barking at Tyrion. Now the beast is not just smelling his perfume, but his fear. Ben considers the battlefield, and then suggests that since they are there, the Second Sons could help reinforce the Beastmaster's defenses in case the windblown strike. Tyrion's heart sinks. It's the safest move for the Second Sons, staying with the Yunker's side while staying far away from the dangerous battle by the bay. And it's a move that has no place for Tyrion. The Second Sons have abandoned him. The Beastmaster agrees and then orders that the prisoners be taken to the prison tent. Their ropes are transferred from the Second Son's saddles to a half-dozen slave guards and an overseer with a large keychain. Tyrion, Penny, and Jorah are taken to a large dim tent filled with animals, the only light coming from a torch held by the lead guard, and some seeping underneath the bottom of the tent. They walk by cage after cage of exotic beast, flickering light illuminating the faces of animals just for a moment. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Tyrion sees a shadow blade rise. We're paralleling Catelyn with the shadow baby here. A guard screams and the torch is dropped, and there seems to be a fight. Tyrion drops to the ground and scurries to hide, while pulling his hands free from the ropes. He believes it's the windblown here attacking. There are screams, human and animal. There's the sound of blades striking blades. Penny is crying. A spray of blood hits Tyrion, but eventually it all stops, and an old man with tan skin picks up the torch. "Get up, Andal," the man will say. "Romo?" Jorah will ask. In the torchlight, Tyrion now sees 3 old Dothraki men standing above them. One more lies dead with the guards. Jorah grumbles at them in Dothraki, and they grumble back. Romo insists that the Dothraki are freeing the Khaleesi's blood, and not him and his little demons. Tyrion notices the keychain on the overseer and grabs it. The group heads to the back of the tent, where they find Jogo, Hero, and Daario still in their cages, manacles about their ankles and wrists. Tyrion opens their cages, and then stops and considers things. And this is important. Tyrion lies and claims there's no keys small enough for the manacles. "They can't mount a horse," someone will say. "I can ride side saddle," says Jogo. Jorah will ask if they can go with the Dothraki, and Romo will say that the Andal is not of the Khalasar. Besides, he says, and looks to the dead Dothraki on the ground, they only have 1 horse to spare, and it's for Jogo. Riding double is simply too slow, though they are welcome to the other hostages. As the old Dothraki leaves with Jogo, Romo looks at Tyrion and Penny and says, "You will need to outrun the wolf." Dread fills Tyrion as he can only guess what that means. They grab dead guards' swords and then leave the tent, where they see that the camp is in panic. Guards are running past them, ignoring them. They see 2 Dothraki boys dart by, perhaps 8 or 9 years old. And finally, they see an ape lumbering by. Tyrion realizes that as a distraction, the Dothraki have been loosing animals. As fast as 2 dwarfs and 2 manacled men can run, they make south for the camp of the charioteer, Jorah cutting guards open as they go. There they get into the great chariot, and Jorah whips the reins and the horses go. They bowl through camp, guards jumping out of the way, some being trampled under hoof. The chariot makes it out to the battle lines where the charioteer's men break into panic as the chariot barrels towards them. Slinger balls fly by, one grazing off of Tyrion's breastplate. A soldier holds his spear out and is trampled by a chariot's horse, but not before stabbing the thing. The horse goes limp, but it's bound with the others, and so its dead body is dragged with the chariot. Tyrion turns to see that Hero has been hit in the head with a slinger's ball. His head is a bloody open wound, and he watches as Hero's corpse falls in the mud and is left behind. But looking back, Tyrion sees it in the distance. The direwolf. And the wolf is following them, he realizes. And so here we have a big chase as Tyrion, Penny, Jorah, and Daario head towards the southern gate of Meereen with a direwolf chasing their chariot. And here you can add any crazy things for Tyrion to spot out in the battlefield. He should probably see Romo and the other Dothraki ahead of him. Others should be in the field, like stray soldiers from Barristan's army running around, scattered, broken. The Windblown should be out there riding with a huge man on a Destria leading them. That is, Arch. They can pursue Tyrion for a moment before they spot the direwolf and then flee. Whatever you like, the sky's the limit. So the chariot's racing ahead of the pursuing direwolf, but behind a pack of horsemen, either the Windblown or the Dothraki. The horses obscure whatever Tyrion is seeing in front, but he can spot other things out there like the Carthene Camel Corps or Tolosi Slingers or whoever. In fact, if hero dying later makes sense, do it. Tyrion spots the fallen trebuchet, the ghost of Astapor, and feels relief that they're near the south gate. But then he sees, perched on the wall, is Viserion. The dragon seems calm, sedate, watching the battle. Near Viserion is the south gate, which is open, with soldiers and riders all crowding to get inside. Suddenly, some of the horses in front of them start squealing and veer away to the left and right. Tyrion now has a view of what's ahead of them, and it's a company of elephants, barreling right towards them. The 3 living horses of their chariot rear suddenly, and the chariot topples over, spilling Tyrion, Jorah, Penny, and Daario into the mud. Tyrion has the wind knocked out of him, but he is able to stand and sees the open gate of Meereen. He's going to have to run. He sees the direwolf racing towards them in the distance, and then he looks to Penny and Jorah and Daario with his manacled ankles. And then he thinks, I don't need to outrun the wolf, just everyone else. And that is where we're going to leave things. So good luck with writing, and we'll see you next time.